Thank you, Deputy Speaker. At this moment, I want to focus on the number one job of the Prime Minister and the government in actually keeping Australians safe. After all, they are in government right now. And when you talk to people out in the community, do they feel less safe and less secure? And in the current circumstances, unfortunately, the public face of that is the answer is yes. And it has been a dreadful and dangerous and damaging debacle that we've seen here. And unfortunately, the Australian people now know that the Prime Minister has been weak on this particular issue. Labor is actually in government and must take responsibility for the actions that they have chosen to take. We've seen a litany of terrible examples of the dreadful and very personal effect on Australians' lives. The tragic consequences have been laid bare in this House. We know that last year the government made a decision to release 153 criminals into the community, and they included sex offenders, child sex offenders, domestic violence perpetrators, drug traffickers and murderers. Now, we do know that the Prime Minister then clearly put the former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern above the safety and security of Australians by insisting on that Direction 99, where offenders were actually given, those ties were given primary consideration by the AAT. No one can deny that this has caused considerable harm. That is irrefutable. It caused harm, and it was a decision of this Labor government and Prime Minister. And the violent and obscene crimes, particularly those relating to young girls by non-citizens whose visa cancellations were reversed as a result of this decision, should give every member in this House pause. Each one of those has a personal story behind them. We've seen so many of these serious offenders released. We saw a particular person who's been charged with the stabbing murder of a 22-year-old. So added to this, case after case of violent criminals with appalling convictions have been allowed to stay in Australia by this government. That is irrefutable. And on top of this, we now know that at least 2 murderers are in the community without monitoring, electronic monitoring, 2 murderers exempt from curfews, 26 sex offenders, including child sex offenders, are no longer electronically monitored, and 27 sex offenders, including child sex offenders, no longer have a curfew. I would be surprised if every single member of this chamber is not concerned about those people and what they may or may not do to people in our communities. Each one of us has a community of people that could be affected by this. And that's not constant monitoring by any stretch of anyone's imagination. Again, a weak Prime Minister who has put Australians at enormous risk and should have acted well before this today. The Prime Minister and the Minister for Immigration knew the risks of Section 99. They were warned. And I cannot get over the 14-year-old girl who was raped by her stepfather when her mother was giving birth. What has that young girl got to live with from here on? What effect is that having on that little family? And, of course, we've seen some really serious traumatising attacks. And we had a lovely lady in Western Australia who was bashed so badly, Nanette Simons. Her face should be one that sticks in the minds of everyone in this place when we're discussing this issue. That human face of that poor woman who did not deserve the treatment that she got. And this is where we need the Prime Minister and government to actually have the courage and the strength to apologise to that woman. I know the Prime Minister came to WA, he was there at the time, and I'm sure that Nanette Simons would have really appreciated a quiet call or drop-in by the Prime Minister and actually said, look, it is a decision we made We made the wrong decision, and I apologise for what's happened to you.